So today I'm very honoured to be introducing you to Kimberly Peden, who is an exercise physiologist and also a part of the summit. So thank you for being involved, Kimberly.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. I'm really excited and happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited you're here too. So you are an Aussie girl with a Canadian background, is that right?
I am. I've been in Australia for just over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've almost lived. Yeah, almost lived half my life in Canada, half my life in Australia. So I call myself a Aussie.
I like it. All right, awesome. So in terms of who you are, do you want to just share a little bit about what it is that you do?
Okay, where to start? So long story short, lots of things. In Canada, I used to be a counselor, so I was very much in the headspace. I had my own kind of health issues before I left Canada, so I kind of ran away from Canada and came to Australia to kind of take care of myself. Unfortunately, I hadn't stumbled upon low carb yet, but I've studied lots of other different things. So I'm an exercise physiologist now. But my background is yoga, Pilates, kind of meditation, holistic side of things. And then when I came to Australia, I started studying body things. I went back to uni about 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, sorry, it seems so long ago, and did a whole undergrad and then became an exercise physiologist about 2 years ago. So that's kind of who I am, and I'm very holistic and kind of combine everything that I've studied into my practice now.
Which is really important, because I think, you know, so much of the medical model is, you know, you're just treating one thing, you know, but I think it has to be looked at like that, doesn't it?
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how did you, well, why are you so passionate about low carb? How did this sort of find you?
Well, kind of stumbled upon it when I was finishing up my master's a couple of years ago. My mom has Parkinson's. My father has type 2 diabetes and has had a couple of heart attacks. And I stumbled upon an article about low carb, and I just thought, oh no, here we go. It's another fad diet. You know, I've been dieting myself since I was when I went through puberty at 13. So I was like, here we go, another thing to tell us how to lose weight quick, or the better bod to 6 weeks. But then I found an article about how it's great for Parkinson's. So I initially kind of dived into it to help my mom. And being the science kind of geeky, researchy person that I love doing, I dived into the science and realized that there's so much merit to low carb and so much evidence that we have not been shown over the years since the 80s of the low fat stuff. So I thought, I'll try it on myself first, is what I usually do before I invite other people to try things. And wow, I felt like I woke up out of a 40-year carb fog when I started it on myself. So I myself get migraines and have always had hormone imbalance issues since I went through puberty, and my moods changed, my sleep changed. I started to lose weight that I, never could lose before. I felt more energy than I ever have had in my 50 years I am now. And I was like, wow, how come no one's told me about this? So I just dove right into it. And I did keto for myself. And now I just kind of I'm either in ketosis or I do a lot of low carb. And when I realized how great it was for myself, I started to share it with my clients. So I've seen some amazing things with clients, first of all, with clients who their goal is weight loss. But then I started to see a lot of things with clients who were pre-diabetic or had cardiovascular issues themselves. And all this stuff just started to magically change for them. They started to use less medication. They came out of pre-diet. They were no longer pre-diabetic. And I was like, this is something that I really have to share with anybody who will listen, basically. So I use it myself. And I also use it with my clients. So it's something that I'm very, very passionate about.
Amazing story. And, I think it's interesting how once we've tried something on ourselves, you know, like it is, I mean, that story is so common, you know, like it is life-changing, and it's very hard to say to someone, this is how you will feel, you know. It's almost like, I suppose it's almost, I liken it sometimes having a baby. You can tell everyone, you know, what it's going to be like, but until you go through it, it's kind of, so it is like that too. I think it's amazing, but I also think what's interesting is, you know, you started because of your mom, and you know, I know someone, you know, people are interested in that story, but you know, whether or not she took it on or not is really, really difficult, and it's really up to her, isn't it? You know, like I've got, so is there a little summary around that, how your mom is? Was she interested in it? Did it sort of?
They kind of, when I first was like, oh, you have to try this. This is great, and there's science behind this. They kind of dabbled in it, and it wasn't their way of eating. Like, I think if I had been home in Canada and had been able to show them how to do it step by step, I think they might have adapted it. Because they have not taken it up, but I have found something that I'm extra super passionate about myself. So.
And that's again not an uncommon story, you know. I think I've got so many colleagues in the arena. Their family aren't interested, and I get clients all the time. Oh, but my husband's not interested, or my, you know, so and so's not interested. And I think that's a lesson in itself, that we can still do things for ourselves, and you know, we can't change the world. We can't change people if they're not interested. But we can just merely present and be there if people are interested. But really, it is up to individuals in the end. Yeah,
and I think it's a lot easier than people think it is to do it. You know, kind of swap it, don't stop it. You know, it's so much easier than people think. You know, and it just has such an incredible impact on health. And I'm so excited that this summit is happening to get the word out. You know, because in my practice, I do a lot of education around macros and carbs and why they spike insulin and things like that. So I think a lot of it is just people have never heard this information before. And I think they think, you know, they put things in the too hard basket, where it's actually, I think, like I said, it's a lot easier than people think it is to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to share a little bit now on your summit talk?
So as an exercise physiologist, I have used low carb once I became fat adapted, which somebody else will probably talk about. It really became about how to incorporate it into my exercise. So I train for, I'm an endurance athlete. So I run, I swim, can't swim at the moment, and I cycle. So lots of trying to find ways how exercise and the low carb kind of mesh. So in the beginning, when I was keto, I found some really interesting things about the intensity of exercise I could do versus what I couldn't do, how many carbs were great for me, and how many did I have to have more when I was doing things like strength training, or how were carbs affecting me when I was doing endurance training. So kind of, I've done a lot of N=1 experiments on myself. Playing around with, do I need more carbs when I strength train or do high intensity? When I'm stressed, do I back off? So I've really kind of found kind of like a basic recipe, I guess, depending on where people are at with their exercise and also where they're at with their low carb journey. So I think it's really important I'm all about, you know, keeping things sustainable. So really meshing exercise with low carb, because in my opinion, they're both medicine. They play with each other, I guess you could say. So they really feed into each other, and each person's very different depending on, you know, if they have any other conditions like pre-diabetic, or they have cardiac issues or anything, and kind of mixing it all together and figuring out the right recipe for each individual. So that's kind of what I'm going to present, mostly my experience with low carb and exercise, but kind of a basic formula that I've come up with, depending on where people are at with their journey.
It sounds amazing, because I think, you know, exercise, so many, you know, I was a personal trainer for 10,
Yep.
11 years. And, you know, the carb loading and the carbs are, you know, a huge part and have been a huge part of exercise.
Yep.
But I do see too, when people come into the low carb space, that often it's like, well, yes, I get it for most of the time, but, you know, when it comes to training, you know, there's a real mental shift too that has to be made around not having a banana or something before they train. And
it's so true.
Yeah. I mean, is that, in your experience, you know, do you think that most people can become, obviously, you know, you become fat adapted, which, you know, does take a varying amount of time depending on all those things that you said about the individual. But do you think most people can exercise and train to a you know, an optimal degree under low carb?
Definitely. Like for myself, I know when I do my endurance training, so when I'm running or cycling, I can fast. Like I can do all of that fasted, and I have energy for days. When I'm doing something that's a little more high intensity, like strength training, and like if I'm doing interval training, hills and things like that, that you need a little bit more energy to do. Sometimes I can do that fasted, and sometimes I need to have maybe something a little bit like piece of fruit or something before I do that training. It's completely doable on a low carb, or even ketogenic diet as well to maintain. I think it's just, like I said, everybody's really different. So it's about kind of tweaking as you go along to see what works for each person.
Yeah, it is that. It's that tweaking. It's that patience. You know, because I think don't we want the magic bullet or the formula? Just give me the formula and let me do it. But I don't. Yeah, you do have to play around with it, and you know, it can take a while. You know, I think it took me, you know, maybe 12 months, 18 months to really find my groove. You know, with training, and you know, I fast. I don't think I've eaten anything now before training for 3 years. But you know, it did take me a while to get to that point, but you know, that it is doable, but you have to have the patience.
Completely doable. And I think people just have to realize that as you're changing your diet and what you're putting in your body, your whole physiology from the inside out is changing as well. So you know, you have to allow your physiology to change to give you the kind of machinery or the mechanics to be able to do what you want it to do. And I think it's completely possible. Well,
amazing. I think I can't wait. I can't wait for your talk. I think it's such a fascinating area, and one personally I'm just so interested in just constantly learning about, and you know, can't wait to get this information out. So great to meet you, Kimberly, and I'm so glad you're a part of the summit. Thank you.
Thank you for including me. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see everybody else's talks as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Trust me, it's going to be great.
I can't wait. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks.